Welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, the show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs use human design to shift from hustle to flow without sacrificing results. Come here to become an unshakable human and build an unshakable business according to your human design. I'm your host, Nicole. Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, everybody. I'm your host, Nicole, and we're here together today. I'm going to share my own story today. Sometimes I talk about my clients, what I'm hearing from them, and this is going to be one of those ones where I'm talking about my process. And I'm talking about what I have going on with human design, with life, and how I use human design really to guide my life. Because I think the most common question that I get asked, so after I do a reading with somebody, or when I start to talk to somebody about their design, if I pull out my friend's chart while we're at coffee, because that absolutely happens when I meet with my friends, is the charts come out and we start talking about design, is that question of, well, what do I do with this? How do I work with it? The answer is you're using this as a new way to navigate your life. You're using the human design chart to know yourself better, so you can ask better questions of yourself when things are happening, how you can assess whether things are working in your life or are not working in your life, and not look to the outside world for the answer as to what you should do about it. To not get caught up in the expectations of others, in trying to keep up with other people, all of that stuff, to let that go, because that's conditioning, and to come back to your truth. Now, it takes work to understand your chart well enough to do what I'm about to explain to you. But I want to give you this illustration of how I navigate all different things in my life, but certainly when things get tough. And not that there's anything horrible happening in my life right now. I've just been in sort of like, a little bit of a rut. I haven't felt terribly creative. I'm in a funky kind of weird season. And I wanted to talk to you about explain to you how I use human design to kind of navigate this and get out of that rut. So maybe you can start to do the same thing. So maybe you can start to understand how you use your design to find your motivation, to surrender to moments when you need them. Because we start asking these questions, right? Okay, I'm in a rut. Okay, how do I get out of it? That's not really the right question. The right question, or a better question, would be, what am I feeling right now? Normally, we go to seek the solution. We go to seek how to fix the problem. We are the problem. Life is the problem. What's happening? So we look to the outside world and we say, what can I do to fix this? That's not it. It's to come back to yourself and assess, what am I actually feeling right now? And if I know what I'm feeling, then maybe I can understand better what the best course of action is. Is it to take action or is it no action? Now, if we're looking at solutions and if we're looking at books and Instagram and programs and all of these pieces of advice that are out there right now, if we look to those things, then what we're going to do is we're going to get somebody telling us that we need to step into our feminine, we just need to relax more. And we need to let go. And then some people will tell you, you need to buckle down and you need to be consistent. You just need to power through. Sometimes maybe. That's why I think when we get into these black or white scenarios, it's this or that. I don't know if that necessarily works. We have to come back to awareness of ourselves. We have to come back to, well, where am I right now? That might help me better. If I know where I am, then I can know how far off course from where I want to be am I. How I get to where I want to go will be a much easier question to answer if I know where I am. But we don't even do that most of the time. Most of the time, we just start going like, okay, how do I get out of this? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And we seek out advice and we seek out somebody else's system. And then we end up kind of in the same pattern where this happens over and over again. We don't see progress, or we do and we burn out. We don't want either of those things. What we want is we want to expand ourselves. So I'm going to kind of walk you through sort of what I've been experiencing. So I haven't felt terribly creative lately. And that's not a normal thing for me. Normally I can find inspiration. I have more ideas than I know what to do with. I have a lot of energy and I just haven't felt like myself that way. So I'm going to go do I'm getting like a blood panel and all this, make sure I'm not sick. I have a cold. I do have like a bit of a cold that I've been getting over for like weeks. But all of that being said, there's just something where I just don't feel like doing some things that I normally would. And I haven't had the ideas that I normally have. And I feel a little like dried up. Ever feel that way? You ever feel like, I don't know why, but I can't really get the creative juices flowing? And as an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this show, or an aspiring entrepreneur or a healer or something like that, what we do is largely creative. This show is creative for me. Every idea from this show comes from me. Unless I have a guest on, which we don't have too many of those anymore. A lot of these shows are me. I do 2 shows a week, and it's my creative energy that fuels it. So when I don't have it, this show becomes harder for me to produce because I want it to be really good. I want them to be really full of value for you guys. I never want to just be, I threw this together. I don't do that, but I do have to keep to a schedule. So there's always that. And then there's content for Instagram and stuff like that. There's all of this stuff that we create, right? Even with repurposing from the show, there's sometimes I want to do different things on Instagram, or I want to do different things in my emails or in other content. And that takes up my creative energy largely. So I want to talk to you about the way that I've navigated this and the way that I'm always sort of assessing things. So when I get this problem, I'm creatively stifled. I don't still feel like I have the juice. I don't feel like I have the ideas. I don't know what's going on. The first thing I do is notice just in my body, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? And usually I'm a manifesting generator. This time, I'm going to talk about specifically about this moment that we're in right now. I just sort of felt like really meh, like unmotivated. Not really, my energy did not want to go anywhere. So I listened to that. There were times where I felt like I'm really tired. So I listened to my body and I rested. And I rested with whatever time that I had. And I had some calls and I had my calendar kind of full. So I didn't have time to do that necessarily as much as I would have liked to. And I think that ran me down a little bit more. But as soon as I had some time, I gave myself permission to do what felt right for me. I took a nap. I rested. I just sort of like allowed that feeling to be there. Because to me, I know that if I feel meh and my energy doesn't want to go anywhere, but I'm not necessarily what you'd call frustrated, the only thing that made me frustrated was when I thought about the work that needed to get done that I wasn't getting done. Now I feel frustrated. That's not the same thing as like, okay, well, now I have to stop doing what I'm doing. I have to stop thinking about all the things I have to do. If I allowed that to drop and I could be aware of that and say, well, if I don't think about that, am I so frustrated? No. I just feel like I don't have much energy. Okay, well, maybe my battery's drained. Maybe I haven't fully recharged. Maybe I've been pushing a little bit and maybe running the battery down, because that's what happens to generators when we do things that are not necessarily a full yes for us. We can drain the battery that is supposed to be sustainable, that is supposed to be making more energy for the things that we do. When the sacral says yes, it'll make more energy. That's when we don't feel tired. That's when we feel like Energizer bunnies. I do not feel like one at the moment. I said, that's not happening. So maybe I've drained the battery a little bit. So maybe I need to recharge it. And as soon as I laid down, my body kind of relaxed and it felt right. And then I allowed myself to sleep as much as I needed to sleep. And then I woke up and I felt recharged. But I still didn't really want to do any of the work that I had to do. So the next thing that I do, and I've done this over the course of a few days, I'm going to kind of like mix some of these moments together to give you a full picture. But what I'm looking for is satisfaction. That's my signature. I'm not going to necessarily, we could get caught up in response. What am I responding to? But really what I'm doing is I walk through my day noticing, am I satisfied right now? Because sometimes I am. Sometimes it's very simple satisfaction of just taking care of the laundry, and then I just want to sit down and not do a whole lot. And I need to take that moment in order for me to have energy for the next moment where I do need to get the work done, where my battery, my engine can kick on and help me get through the projects that I need to get through. Now, the other thing is that I'm an emotional authority. My emotional wave can take me down. My emotional wave, it doesn't often dip super low, because if you've listened to my episodes on emotional authority, the emotional wave, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, emotional authorities, we have emotions happening all the time, and they're happening on a cycle like a wave. So there's a pattern to them. Like if you saw a graph going up and down, you would see that for our emotions go up and down. And there's different patterns based on the channels that you have connecting to your sacral. So if you're an emotional authority and you have the 3740 channel, then you will have the tribal emotional wave. So that has a particular ratcheting up pattern, okay? So it tells us a little bit about how it moves, the pattern that it moves through. So we're always moving on this pattern. We are always going through it. But what I always say is that you'll never change the pattern. You're always going to move on that wave pattern that you're on. The analogy that I give is it's like music notes. The melody of your song, of your emotional wave, always stays the same, but you can sing it in a higher or a lower key. So what I mean by that is as we do deconditioning work, as we work with our emotions, as we become more at home with our emotions and allow them, we start to sing in a higher key where that low point of our wave doesn't dip as low. That's me now. My emotional wave doesn't typically take me down the way that it used to, but it does not mean that I do not have moments of that, because I do. So I have to assess myself and say, do I feel emotional right now? And the answer was yes for me the other day. I was like, yes, I do feel emotional. And how I knew that, I was just like, I'm crying at like everything. I'm like on the verge of tears. But the answer is to let them happen whenever they can. So I'm allowing myself to cry at little videos of Wicked and them talking about the story of like Ariana Grande being 10 years old and going to see Wicked and meeting Kristen Chenoweth and telling her that she wanted to play. I'm crying in my bathroom about this. So it's not all bad emotion. I'm just like, so wonderful. I can't believe she's getting to do this. I'm in that place and I'm allowing that to happen. That's important too. So I have to make allowances for these things. What we might say is I don't have time to be emotional right now. We have to make time or it will take up all of our time. I'm aware of how I feel. I'm aware of whether I'm in my signature or in my not self theme. Am I in frustration or am I in satisfaction? And I'm looking for the satisfaction. I'm looking for moments of satisfaction. So when my husband says that we need something from the store and I think about going outside, I look at him, I'm like, oh, I got a yes from that. I want to go to the store. I'll go get it. And he's like, no, I'll go get it. No, I would like to go. And I got outside and it was a beautiful day and I rolled the windows down and I opened up the moonroof and I just allowed the wind in. And it was a satisfying moment. Now my battery's starting to go a bit more. Now I am open and I start to have ideas start to pop in my head about what I could do for the projects that I have going on, for this show. I remembered I actually had an episode for the show, made me feel even more satisfied. I was like, oh, wait, I actually have one recorded that I can use. That's amazing. And so I'm working with my energy rather than against it. Now, when I say that I'm noticing frustration or satisfaction and I'm looking for satisfaction, that does not mean there's a difference because I see a lot of people do this. They start to, whether it's invitations or satisfaction that they're looking for success. If you're a projector, you're looking for peace. If you're a manifester, surprise. If you're a reflector, all of these signatures that we have, no matter what it is, what can happen is people can go frantically searching for those things. Was that a response? Is that satisfaction? Is that this? I guarantee you it's not that if you're in that energy. You have to let go. I want to be clear here that the way that I'm going through this is very relaxed, very much allowing whatever is to be. I am just being very curious about the way that I feel, what I feel, and whether I'm in these themes or not. And I happen to know all of my gates. So I know very nuanced aspects of my design. I happen to know that I have the first gate in a first line in my Uranus position. So I happen to know that is the gate of creativity. And in the first line, it is about really waiting for the moment creativity wants to come and not forcing it. And forcing it only makes it worse. So the fact that I know that about myself helps me to surrender to the fact that I can't force creativity, especially not me, because I will go into that shadow where it becomes complete. I believe the shadow of gate 1 in the Gene Keys is entropy. You're not moving. You can't create anything. And I know this because I spent a lot of my life in that shadow before I knew about this work. Now to know that if I try to force, I end up pushing myself down more and making it harder, that allows me to surrender to what is. So that allows me to feel very comfortable in this process and trust that the idea will come through, the thing will come through, but I got to let it go. I've got to find some real satisfaction. That's my job. My job isn't to engineer it. My job is to allow it. And I do happen to know that sitting in my house, being by myself, not interacting with the world, that's not usually where doing that for too long. If I'm caught up on Zoom calls and at my desk, just stuck here working a lot and not having some space for myself, I know that that will put me in a rut. And we came off of a launch where I was home a lot more and doing a lot more of that kind of stuff. But we did have some fun on the weekends and things like that. But I'm tired and I have to honor that. And the best way to honor it is to be gentle with myself. But the other things that I start to notice are I can't half-heartedly commit to things. I was sort of half-heartedly doing the work. If I half-heartedly do my work, that's the shadow of my gate 29. If I half-heartedly do my work and I'm not really committed, I know that that never results in something good. There are some projects I want to start, and I know I'm not in the energy to start it right now. I don't want this to be the beginning for that thing yet. I'm not there yet. So what human design allows us to do is it tells us, people will say that awareness is the most important skill that we can learn, the most important thing for us to adopt. But it can be difficult to try to be aware of everything. What human design has given me is a system for awareness. It has allowed me to pinpoint certain things that are important for me to be aware of, so I could ask better questions of myself. So I could ask myself about my emotions. Is this a circumstantial emotion? Did something happen that's making me sad or emotional right now? Or am I just at a point in my wave where I'm very sensitive? And if I'm very sensitive, is this something that I just need to kind of allow? Do I watch the Wicked clips and allow myself to be overwhelmed with emotion by them and allow the tears to flow and redo my makeup if I have to? I'm aware of that aspect of myself, that that's an important key for me. And if I fight that, I will lose. I will either lose in the short term or the long term. I might get through it in that moment where I'll get the thing I need to done, but it will come back to bite me at some point, and it will take me down where it's almost like, I look at that where it's like, I may have gained one step today because I pushed through, but what I lose is by doing that, I will then have to take 2 to 3 steps back later on. It will come back to me, and usually it will take more than I got. So I'm usually net down when I do that. But I know to be aware of where my energy wants to go. Am I frustrated? So I know what my themes are. So I know what to look out for. Because we'd say, like, well, if you don't feel good, that's such a vague way of looking at how we feel. Well, do you feel sick? Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel satisfied? How do you feel? There are certain questions we can ask ourselves by knowing our type, our authority, and the other aspects of our design. For me, this has been largely around creativity. So creativity for me, I know that I have a gate that aligns with creativity that is sort of one of the key elements of my creative force. And I know how it operates. And I know how the shadow operates. So the fact that I've done that work allows me to see it differently and know how to work with it. So there's study involved. So back to that question that we opened up with, how do I use human design? What do I do with this information? Well, you're learning the codes of you. My creative code is that I have to honor the creative process and flow, that I cannot force it, that there are certain ways I've learned to work with it. Now, this time I had some other things going on. I felt like my body was a little bit run down, so I rested. That was what I chose to do, and it worked. It really opened me up. I felt my body change, and now I felt more open to allow creativity to come through. But in other instances, I've worked with that gate differently, where I engage with something simple and creative, not where I need to produce anything, I might just draw on a napkin for a little bit and just allow that to come out. I might write in a journal just the words that flow out of the pen and allow that to happen. I open the channel, but without having to produce something. Okay, so now I'm learning to work with that. So we have these different aspects of our design, and it clues us in to how to work with different aspects of ourselves. That's how you start to work with human design. You start to study yourself. You're studying the codes of you. You are learning to recode your life by understanding how to move with your shadows and your gifts, what they feel like. By knowing what the shadow of my gate one is, well, I know how to spot it. I know how to see it. I know how to move with it. I know how to not get trapped in it. That comes from me understanding myself. So this is how you work with your design and you start to use it in your life. This is also the same work that you do. It's just deepened on another level when you start to work with your gifts, when you start to do things like what I do with Genius Brand, where we're putting your brand together based on the gifts that you have. You start embodying your gifts, you start to become them. When you start to become them, you start to just put them out in the world very naturally. People start to come to you for them, and it becomes your brand and your business. So it's all the same work. You're just using them for different applications. I hope that this helps you. I just wanted to kind of illustrate this point and how this works, that it's just a new way to navigate life. It's a new way to understand yourself. It's a new way to assess what's happening with you and what the next moves you should take are. And it comes from an empowered place. I didn't once look to the outside world to try to save me from this situation. I didn't reach out to anyone. I didn't want any input. It all came from me. And that's powerful because that's how I'm able to be calm in this process and not be like, oh my God, well, what's going to happen? Or am I going to get this done? Or is this going to be ready? Or I don't get into that state. And the reason I don't get into that state is I know that if I work with my energy, it will all work out. And that's an incredibly powerful position to be in. And it allows me to have a calm and regulated nervous system most of the time. I'm not going to say all of the time, but I know what to do. And I have tools that I can use if I do end up in a state of panic or anxiety. I know how to work with it. I also do these things regularly. I don't just pull out the tools when I need them. I do them regularly. I meditate every morning. I do breath work every morning. So I am starting the day with a clean slate or pretty close to it. And that's where every entrepreneur really needs to get to, is to the point where you know yourself so well that you can navigate any situation with ease in your body. I'm not saying that everything is easy, but you navigate it with ease because you're like, I got this. I have life. I've got life. There's nothing that's going to take me down. So I can have calm in my body about that. I'm not going to have anxiety in my body about that. And then we can seek out help for strategies, for other things. But you do need to learn to lead yourself before that really starts to be an enjoyable process of adding strategy and other things onto it and starting to up-level your life in other ways. We are the foundation. Shaky person, shaky business. And that's why I always say at the end of the show, we have that tagline. I really do mean it. In order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. This is how you get to climb that ladder and you get to build this business and you get to climb the mountain and really feel satisfied and you achieved what you set out to achieve, like your dreams came true when you reached the top of the mountain, because it feels good. It's everything that you wanted it to be because you were you the whole time you were climbing it. You weren't somebody else's dreams and somebody else's ambition and somebody else's goals. You were you. And there's no greater gift in this world than to be yourself. Okay? So I'm going to leave that here. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope this illustrated how you can use human design to navigate your life better and to be the unshakable business owner that I know that you can be. Now remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design, everyone. We will see you next time. If you love this episode and you're a fan of the show, please show us the love on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the show and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with other entrepreneurs on their human design journey, join our free Facebook community, Human Design for Entrepreneurs. Go to nicolelano.me/podcast links to join the group, book a human design reading with me, or access our free human design resources. We'll see you there.